back on the pod. Welcome back to the show, the number 5 podcast in the world. Don't forget to like, comment, bump the microphone, and subscribe, as the guests we have been pulling lately have been freaking awesome. The conversations have been reaching a new level, I feel. I'm on a new level. Don't copyright me. Dinner is not here today. We have an empty chair. He has had a baby, which is partly true. He is not, but his partner has. So, understandably, Dinner has been spending time with the family. He's taking a break. I'm not sure when he'll be back, but he'll be back, of course. But obviously, at the moment, it's not a priority in his life, which is normal. I'm excited for today because our guest is Jason Cadee. He's the Brisbane Bullets captain, but also I'm excited to have a guest come in studio. It's been a long time since that's happened, and I feel the conversations are a little bit different when you sitting actually across or next to the person, because it's not quite the same. I mean, we do our best to emulate a proper conversation when we are doing a virtual interview or conversation chat, but just sitting across from someone, being able to feel their energy, it is different. So today, Jason's coming in. He's about to come in. I'm super excited for this conversation. Brisbane Bullets captain. He played for the Australian team in the 2018 Commonwealth Games, won gold with them. He's been playing in the NBL his whole career. Super interesting because his mum played for the Australian Opals, which is the Australian female basketball team, and his dad played for the Australian Boomers, the men's basketball team, and then went to be the coach of the Australian Boomers and also coached in the NBL as well. So that'll be really interesting. And now he's had a kid recently, I believe, young fella. That being said, it'd be interesting to know, as he's been the son of 2 very good basketball players, is there any pressure on his child to be not on that level, but to play basketball? So that'd be really awesome. Let's get into the show. You've always been destined to play basketball? Your parents very into it?
You could pretty much say that. I mean, it's funny now, having my own kids, my eldest Louis being 2.5, and that's what everyone says about him. He's a very coordinated child for that age. Catch, kick, shoot, all these little things that he can do. And so it's funny hearing that said about him, and I'm kind of like, he'll figure it out, maybe. But in terms of me, that was very much, even my sister a little bit, but me definitely, like, just my love for being around it and wanting to do it. And then you factor in kind of what my parents did, it did go that way.
Do you reckon the same things that you're being told now was told to your parents?
Nah, I think kind of what they've learnt was far greater than what my grandparents and something learned. And also, times have changed so much now. There's so much different things you can see, do, watch, like just read. So I think the things I got told from my parents to even what I get told now, it's changed so much. But I would say that I was very fortunate having them as my parents, whether I realised it when I was younger or not. Probably not, being a kid and they're just your parents. But knowing now what I know, like the information I get firsthand, a lot of people would die for stuff like that.
And for everyone listening, your mum played for the Australian Opals and dad for the Boomers.
Yep.
So that's a perfect
combo. It's pretty when you both parents play for Australia, dad coached at the Olympics as well. It's pretty cool. Just looking at kind of like, as I said, now removing myself from being just a younger child, a bit older now at 30, just look at what my parents have achieved sporting-wise. Both of them in the Basketball Hall of Fame in New South Wales. I think my dad even in Australia. Like there's so much history that they've had in the sport and so much good things they've done. And I think it's pretty cool. I feel like a lot of if I look back on myself in that regard, I feel like I've only added to what they've done. I don't think I've heard it in any way. I think I've done it my own way, but also added to what people would say about mum and dad. I think I've just slid straight into that in terms of people would really like the Cadee name. I think just has a great amount of respect attached to it from how we've all carried ourselves, and it's pretty cool to think I hopefully have and added to it in some way.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. Do you remember the moments that got you started in basketball? Was it most people, I guess, play soccer? That was, I think, my first sport. Um, my dad was
Mine
a
as well.
good, yeah.
Yeah,
My
soccer.
my dad was a good cricketer. Played for the Bulls. I think if there was the opportunity there was in cricket back then as there is now, it probably would have been a different story. And then he stopped when I was born. I don't know why. Might regret that now. I don't know. But he would never urge me to play cricket, which was odd. That I mean, the people that he played with, the knowledge that he's acquired in his time. Your parents weren't pushy. How were they towards it?
Nah, they weren't pushy. Yeah, I'd probably say they weren't at all. If I asked, if I ever said to Dad, I want to go shoot, say, right, let's go. And that meant like get in the car. I mean, we had a ring at home, but if I wanted to go properly shoot, get in the car, drive 20 minutes to Bankstown, shoot, go home. So it was like, it wasn't a process of like, we just walk down the road and shoot. I wouldn't ever say he forced me to be there because there were days where we'd go shoot, and if I wasn't really trying, he'd say, right, I'm going to get in the car, you bring the balls, this is a waste of time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like if he didn't feel like I wanted to be there too, we were out of there pretty quick. So I wouldn't say he forced, but I would say there was an element to him and Mum that would have loved, like they were involved in basketball still. Like Mum was running the junior program, rep program at Bankstown. Dad was the CEO of the Razorbacks. Mum then joined the Razorbacks and helped him do all that stuff. Mum then went back to Bankstown. So there was always basketball going on. So I would think in terms of their lives, it probably made things easier, me playing basketball. I know my mum hated early morning soccer when I was younger. Cold, winter.
God.
I
thought that was only swimming the early mornings.
Well, they were, and I hated them, so I stopped doing that too very quickly. But I did love soccer. That was kind of the first thing I did, and without remembering, Mum and Dad were pretty adamant that I didn't even like going near basketball early days. I loved basketball, but to go and do it, I never wanted to do it. And then one day, Dad had masters training every Saturday. Him and some of the older boys, they'd go down train and then go to the pub after and have a few beers. And so often me and my mates, because they were all friends through Dad's parents and stuff, we'd all end up at the pub with them and we loved it. It was a great time. But apparently someone came out and grabbed Dad one day and said, you might want to see this Jace is actually playing. And my mates were short. They needed a player. I went and played, and the rest is history basketball-wise.
Wow.
But yeah,
So that was it. That was what. So before that, you were just fiddling around, shooting.
Pretty much just hanging around, and obviously at stadiums a lot. Dad took me to like learn to play and things like that, and I just didn't want to do it. And so I'd say there was an element of him that would have been disappointed in that. Like if you think about it, like it's what you're involved in. Now it's not the end of the world, but I think there's an element as a parent where you kind of would love. Well, I look at it from myself now, being involved in basketball for now 30 years, basically since I was born. I just think about how many great people I've met, friends I've made, memories I've got, experiences. It's taken me around the world. Now, not everyone can do what I have done, but I would love for Louis and his sister Scarlett, even though she's little, to grow up in that world, and more for the people you meet. I feel like you just meet a lot of great people in basketball, and so, but yeah, going back to that, that's just basically how it got started, because I love soccer, little athletics, all these different sports.
So
Just things that, like, I guess as a kid, you do so many different sports, and that I just never had really shown an interest in wanting to do the basketball side of things other than shoot around and mess around with my mates. And then that one day, Dad came out and looked, and I was playing, and he tried to act like it wasn't a big deal, and I played every Saturday after that, and I still play now.
That Saturday, had you got points that was the sort of motivating factor, like, shit, I'm actually okay at this, and you're like, I'll keep going because I'm succeeding, or was there
I don't remember well enough. I was only about 7 or 8, so it was pretty early days, but all the friends, as I said, like that
whole Saturday,
the whole Saturday with the Masters, like a lot of their sons and kids were playing that Dad had known for a long time, so I'd known a lot of them just from being around basketball stadiums through that. And so I think a lot of it was just generated from the fact they were playing. Later on, did that influence of me being better than most probably helped me choose basketball. Yeah, for sure. Because I played a lot of sports, as I said, little athletics, and I did all those things up until a certain age. And then there was obviously, without trying to sound like an idiot, but I was obviously pretty good at basketball, and that was obvious to myself and others.
Yeah. Were you ever considering another sport, even though obviously the skill is more in basketball, but was there ever an enjoyment factor in another sport that
Yeah.
tempted?
I wouldn't say tempted, and once again, like I was pretty good at soccer. Like I guess as a kid, I loved sport and I loved competing. So, if it was little athletics, I wanted to win everything I did. And if it was soccer, I loved scoring goals and being that guy that everyone's like, oh, Jace just scored 4 goals again. So I loved the element of competing and winning, and so whatever it took for us to win, I would want to do. And so through being a junior, doing a lot of sports, like there was I loved playing soccer and just being out in the field and being able to just run everywhere and score goals and do things like that. And then as I got a bit older, it was kind of AFL started taking over, and obviously there's always been a bit of a translation from basketball players going to AFL. And so I just enjoyed doing that. And once again, it was the same thing, taking marks, kicking goals and things like that. So I wouldn't say there was ever a stage where it was like, you need to pick between sports, because I did that for myself pretty early, but I had a lot of enjoyment, a lot of love playing those other sports.
Competing.
To the stage where it did take me away from basketball. Like there was some times that maybe I didn't make a game on a Saturday because I was playing AFL or things like that. So there was definitely elements of it, but it was never really like some people you hear of getting to that stage of like, hey, pick one.
Yeah.
Where I naturally went down the basketball path, but I definitely loved and would say I was fairly decent at a number of different sports as a kid. Yeah.
And then getting closer towards the end of high school, were you thinking about the college route? What sort of, I guess, pathways are you thinking for basketball?
College was a big thing. It became a fad almost when I was at that age because so many people were doing it. And so I'd kind of gone from the like the New South Wales, Bankstown, the New South Wales thing, and then all of a sudden the RAS became a live option for me, and going down there kind of opened up my world to so many different things, because I went from kind of just being like a good junior in the Bankstown, New South Wales comp to doing okay at state basketball. Like New South Wales, I didn't really set the world alight. Like I was okay as bottom age 18s. I was okay top age 16s, but 18s top age, it went like I started putting up massive numbers and started probably showing people.
What was that, you reckon? Was that just growth physically, or
a little bit?
Skill came together.
I think it just all kind of took off for me around then. I think I'd had moments like there was like under 12s top age where I was having 40s and things like that, and then bottom age under 14s. It would kind of, when I went to bottom age and there was a bit of a difference in maturity and things like that, it dropped off, and then top age 14, same thing, and then bottom age 16s, top age 16, and then bottom age 18s for the New South Wales comp. I started doing things I was doing top age, having 30s, having 40s, and it got to the stage where I remember having an honest conversation with my dad and a guy named Peter Lonigan, who I have a lot of time for, who's involved with Basketball Australia now, where I thought about not playing at 18s top age, just playing youth league. So I guess to your point, to what you just said then, so my 18s top age year, I played 18s, I played youth league, and I played a bit of ABA. So I was playing men's basketball, I think youth league's like under 23s or something like that, plus under 18s as a 17-year-old. So my Saturday was youth league, my Sunday was reps. So there was a lot going on, and it was the talk around under 18s top age when that year it kind of got serious for me was, remember Lono saying to me, why don't you just play 18s and just dominate it? And I looked at him and he's like, have you ever really? He goes, yeah, last year under 18s bottom age you did, and we won the state titles for the first time as a bottom ager. Like a lot of my mates who were older hadn't won it, where top age every year we won. I never lost a game top age for my whole junior career. And so I remember Lono saying that to me, and dad was not very for missing 18s because he grew up with Lindsay Gaze and so on, coaching him, and he's seen Andrew grow up and big on just playing your age group, even if you played older, but you played your age group. And I remember Lono saying that to me, and I was like, righto, fair enough. And so I had an element of like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And so 18's top age, just that whole scene, it just kind of took off. And so that was where I think it really, I kind of, as I said, I was an element of maybe in the topper 5-10% of people getting around, but that 18s, I think it kind of showed myself and a lot of people, okay, like there's a separation here. Like the numbers I was putting up, like from like, yeah, there was a couple of 65, 60s, like it was like some wild numbers. Like me and Anthony Petrie, who's one of my best mates, who played for years, Peach, we talk about some things as juniors, and I look at social media now, and once again, I'm very actually modest normally, but I say, like, I look at the highlights they post of kids now and how much attention they get. And me and Peach laugh because Peach was a serious athlete back in the day. And I was like, I just said to him, I said, bro, could you imagine some of the posts that would get posted about me now? I was like, I was actually like putting up some serious numbers as a 17-year-old, and even in youth league, I was leading the league in youth league scoring.
At 17.
Playing 18. So I was leading that in scoring, and 18s dominate. And so, like, I think just I've got lost in it all here talking about it and thinking about it. But that year kind of really just opened up my world to then leading to the AIS. So when I got to the AIS, you become elite athlete, basically. That's your daily routine is training, school, or work. They make you work.
And that was the first time that, before that had been Friday, Saturday, Sunday games.
Yeah, like...
But before that, that was the first time, that you'd actually day in, day out practice.
Yeah, and then I go down there off the back of all this, which you just speak about, and then I'm down there with the 18 best kids from around Australia. We train every day. We get Sunday off, I think. We train Saturday mornings. We play against some local competitions and things like that. We play in the Seabull, which was a men's comp. Now would be like the NBL 1 South, like, but not even the basketball playing, like just training against like the best kids from around Australia. If you didn't show up one day, you just looked horrible. Like you had to be so good every day.
Really?
Because like
that's the culture.
Well, just everyone's good. So you know what I mean? So as a junior, like there were some people that I played with or against that weren't great, but they were handy enough and they were around, and like they were involved in teams. And so you'd like, if you went and played local comp, like you'd beat some teams by 100. And like it was just like it's not disrespecting people, but
That's
it's just
disrespecting.
The scoreline does.
Yeah.
But like our team was very good, and so obviously they're just enjoying their basketball and they love basketball and they're playing. Where some of us actually were taking it really serious, and we were also had trained for years, played reps, and they're not
mentality difference.
Just a different world to what they were in, and you go down there and there's none of that. Like there's none of that, and it's serious talent. All your own age, year above, year below, like all there for the same reason, because you're now at that stage, you're thinking about being a professional basketball player.
Yeah. Did it ever get overwhelming doing day in, day out practice?
Yeah. That initial bit.
Really?
That initial shock when you're down there. Moved away from home. People you don't know originally. You're required to like actually kind of be a professional athlete as a 17, 18-year-old. 16, 15, some of them, like it's an elite environment that you get thrown into, and they do a great job of helping you through it. But if you're like a homebody like I was and loved being around my family and friends, it's a rude shock, that whole setting. And then also off the back of that, the day-to-day training, weights, recovery, training, weights, recovery. My body hurts. I haven't felt pain like really this before. Like it's all that thrown into one. But if you make your way out the other side of it, it's the best thing that can ever happen to you, because you, like I was fortunate enough, as I said, with Dad being with the Razorbacks, I watched an elite environment for a long time, and now this was my first taste of it without being a professional athlete, of like, this is what it takes. How do you play through soreness? How do you play through pain? How do you find ways to recover quicker? How can you beat people that are maybe more athletic than you, more talented, bigger, stronger, whatever it is? Like, you learn all that in this day-to-day environment. And so coming out the other side of that, there's not many other environments at the time that would prepare you for whatever you're going to, whether it be college or the NBL. And then back to the original question of college, like I want to say like 16 out of those 18 I was with went to college at the AIS.
Wow.
Like, I think...
Is that just because everyone's doing it? It's just
it was
a
little
pathway.
bit. It was a little bit. And there's an element of like, too, like going, like looking at now what I did, choosing the NBL, I'd put myself in a position of having like loads of college offers. Like, I remember like just letters and phone calls of college offers, and having genuine, like, we're going to sign you as an NBL roster player. Like, you're not a development player, you're in our 10. And so I put myself in a position of like, the choice was like professional athlete, get paid, go to college, do the college thing.
Unpaid.
Well, like, it was a thing. And as I've said, the space I grew up in with Dad was, I love the NBL. All I ever wanted to do was be an NBL player. So I have this right here. Why would I choose college? And so a lot of people push you the college path, and I see so many positives to it. Like, you see so many people go over there and thrive and love it. And maybe I would have, maybe I wouldn't have. I don't really know. But the route I chose, I'd put myself in a position as a kid to have offers to choose to accept. And the NBL, just as I said, I grown up loving the NBL, wanting to be an NBL player. Why wouldn't I be an NBL player right now?
Of course.
Rather than delay it. And so that was kind of that was basically where I got to. That was the choice I had to make. I visited a couple of NBL programs, seen it for what it was. Had my parents obviously part of that decision, and my uncle, who is my agent. Well, he's actually my cousin, but he's old enough to probably be my uncle, whether he wants to hear that or not. But he was part of that all too, and that led to me signing to the Gold Coast and choosing that over college.
Do you reckon, or is the NBA still a part of your thought process? Because it
No.
sounds like, you just NBL,
Yeah, I just,
stay home.
like, that's like, I would love to. If someone come up to me and said, we'd love to sign you. Yeah, 100%. But I think there's also an element of like, you have a timeline of when that really is a live option.
Yeah.
And it's not that, like, there's like the talent difference NBA to NBL. Like, some of them, like, your elite superstars, man, like, they're like on another planet. Like, your LeBrons, your Stephs, like all those dudes, like,
Alien.
they're just, like, they're unicorns, like, almost. Like, they're just like, they're so elite at what they do that they're just like in another stratosphere. But that next echelon of players, like,
how attainable do you reckon is the LeBron, Steph, KD level? Is it attainable, or is it just a combination of perfect sort of maybe like a toughness in childhood to give you some determination, but enough like...
It's honestly just a freak thing.
And then, hard work.
Like, just, like, obviously they would work their tails off. But, like, as I say, like, there's a lot of people that do, like, there's that saying that, what is it? Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work, or whatever it is. And, like, that there's a truth. But, like, you could
hard work.
You could work as hard as you want. And if you have no talent, like, you're not going to be better than someone that's talented. Like, how? Like, there's got to be an element. Yes, talent has to work to make it. Like, that's 100%. But the person that's working hard also has an element of talent if they're going to beat out someone who's super talented.
Well, I guess hopefully, if in working hard over time, you can accrue some skills.
100%. But the element of talent is always going to beat someone if they use it the right way.
Yeah.
Like, that's my point to that. Like,
talent plus hard work beats hard
like,
work.
you just can't, like, some people are naturally talented. And that's no disrespect to other people, or that's nothing against them. Like, some people naturally...
Never gonna be LeBron.
Like, some people naturally pick up a basketball or a football or a cricket ball, and they naturally can do stuff. Like, even, bloody rest his soul, Shane Warne, like, I was watching the stuff about him. He just picked up a cricket ball. He liked playing AFL. He didn't even like cricket. He picked up a cricket ball and could do something with it that people couldn't.
Yeah.
Now, other people, you don't think they worked hard to try and do the things he could do with it? 100% they would have. And some people still do, but they can't do what he could do with a cricket ball. Now, as I said, you could work as hard as you want doing that. But some people just have that bit of talent that others don't. And your LeBrons, your Stephs, your KDs, your Kobe Bryants, Michael Jordan, they all had that something different inside them that would just separated them from everyone else that's ever played.
Have you seen King Richard? It's a documentary on Serena and Venus Williams' dad.
No, I've heard about it, but
It's
I haven't
really
seen it.
cool. It's interesting because to like this sort of point, he had this plan that before they were born, they were going to become his first child, which is Venus, number one in the world, and then his second child, the younger one, is going to become not only number one in the world but the best ever.
It's interesting.
And he pulled it off.
Yeah, he did.
Well,
I mean, I think like
it's very interesting.
were both parents athletes, or was there
Not athletic,
yeah,
but not athletes.
yeah, but like they had like some athlete genes inside them, and
To a degree, he had to learn tennis. He wasn't a tennis player. He
didn't
had
know
to learn tennis to teach them. For whatever reason, they didn't really get into it in the movie, but tennis was the sport that he decided. And then his other three daughters were lawyers and doctors, and that was part of this plan, called by King Richard the Plan.
yeah, right. I mean,
Crazy, scary stuff. That
very well done. But I guess like there's an element of like if somebody like obviously that situation I would want to say is like not everyone can just decide that that's what they're going to make their child. It's going to happen.
yeah,
Like I think that situation is one of those ones you look at and go, wow. Like as you just said, that's incredible. And he had a plan, he had an idea, and it worked out. Now, could the next 10 people that become
Probably
parents
not.
in Brisbane tonight,
Probably no chance.
overnight, decide
Literally.
that? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that easy. But there is an element too of like, well, my dad knew basketball, so everything that I asked of him when I was younger, or everything he said to me through basketball, or mindlessly sitting at Christmas dinner with my family, like if anyone ever comes to a Christmas dinner with my family, or when we're all together, a lot of it is basketball. And so the things that I was picking up through my dad, whether he was thinking to himself, like, I want to make my son a basketball player, I don't know. I'd have to ask him. But like those things can kind of really kick off where a kid gets to. And so like even you talk about my child now, is he going to be a basketball player, a sports star? I have no idea. No idea at all. But people say to me, which I laugh at because you don't think about that with your kids, people are like, this kid's going to be a freak. And I'm like, he's 2.5. Like, you really don't know that. But then when you say stuff like that, there's an element of things get passed on. You teach your kid things, like you do stuff naturally. Like I naturally go out with Louis now and kick the ball to him and throw the ball, and we have a hoop and we shoot on the hoop, and like I naturally do things with him. And then I see some other kids that are maybe like a bit older and they're like just learning how to like put the ball near the hoop, and I throw to him and he's just shooting it.
Yeah.
So I guess there's an element where you could see how you could frame a kid's thinking, but obviously what he's done is incredible too.
Scary. Like how hard it is to plan out your own life and say,
Yeah,
okay, I want to
that's-
be good at this or the best at this. To not only have done that, but go, I want to do this for other people's lives and not have them hate you.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to be hated when you're like, you got to do this. This is the regime. This is the amount of work that needs to be done to get to world number one.
But that's what I'm saying. There's so much that goes into that. And
how
like,
did you do it?
like, yeah, just the fact he did it is like, there won't be many you hear about that are able to do that. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just phenomenal.
Well, yeah, as you said, it's crazy. Like, it's actually mind blowing that someone could have a plan like that, especially not for themselves. For like his kids, not knowing like how you're supposed to know how that's going to all work out, and to have it actually work out. Like, I'm now going to watch it.
Very good.
Is crazy.
And then also you've got the racial issues that were going on back then, like through the 90s. Not easy.
No, not an easy time to be able to have a plan like that, and once again, separate like the hate and all the other stuff going on. No, a very hard thing to do. Like, thinking about how many things he would have to jump through just to do that with his children.
Yeah.
Let alone still like keep to that plan. Like, it's pretty wild just thinking about it without even, as I said, I haven't even seen it.
Yeah. So then NBL was sort of the forefront of your mind. That was sort of the goal as you signed to the Gold Coast
Blaze.
Blaze. not long before your debut, you had an accident.
Mm-hmm.
You had a car accident.
It was like, so I decided in April.
So you've come out guns a-blazing after the AIS.
So I was still at the AIS. So I had a year at the AIS, and then in that year I made the under-19s, and I also made the Boomers team for multiple different things. So that year was a whirlwind of like, got to the AIS, going into the AIS, the week you get there, there's an Aussie camp, my first ever proper Oz camp. So they have a camp, and then there's like a few more camps.
Who are you mixing with in that Aussie camp there?
Like, at the AIS with me was guys like Ryan Brockoff, Delhi, Brock Modem, Cody Ellis, Jordan Page, who was a child prodigy. They were calling him the next Paddy Mills back then. Wow. Geordie was a freak. Hugh Greenwood, Mitch Creek, Anthony Drimmick, Mitchell Young. Like, I almost want to say majority of that group end up playing professional sport at some point. Wow. With Delhi and all that, obviously making the NBA and so on. But so that 19s team we had, not all those guys made it, but majority of them did, was a great team for one. So I got to play for Australia after being at the AIS for 6 months. I think our Worlds was in like July. And then off the back of, we had a camp in France for the pre-Worlds tournament, which was about April that year. Off the back of that, 6 of us got invited to go into a Boomers camp. And so we just landed back from France. So I think we did like the last 2 days of it, which was a cool experience. And then off the back of the Worlds, so when all that was happening, I was having a conversation. Marty Clark was our head coach of the program. And Marty has done so much for me at that stage of my life, and just the perfect like just a smart basketball mind, but a great person. And so I remember the conversations with Marty. Marty was one of the only people that said, mate, you don't have to go to college. So as all this was happening, the whole college, I had to decide kind of if I wanted to go to college that year. I had to decide earlier in the year. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was honestly like, do I want to go? Do I not want to go? And then we found out I could actually just go the year later if I wanted to. And so we pushed it all back. Did the Worlds thing, come out of the Worlds thing, get invited to another Boomers camp, end up making the Boomers team, me and Delhi, to go to Brazil and Argentina. And so that was with like Paddy, Ingles, Brad Newley, who was great for me as a youngster, like heaps of like now NBA dudes. At the time, some of them were NBA, some Europe, Big Nate Jawai, like all them. And so we go to Argentina, Brazil, play a bunch of games. Brett Brown's a coach, incredible experience. I think I played maybe 5 minutes of one game, but I loved every minute of it.
So good.
And come back from there. So now we're getting later that year, and still the same thing. Am I going to come back to the AIS next year? Like, what am I doing right now? And so I was in a bit of a lull of where I was going and what I was doing, but I was involved in the Boomers program, and I was doing really well, and the AIS had been really good for me. And so Delhi and all that were a year older than me, and then Creaky and Drimmick and all that were a year younger. So the new intake was going to be more people my age or those younger guys. So I was actually I've gone from being like the middle-aged one to like kind of the older one. And so I spoke to Marty and remember saying like, I'm going to come back next year and do the AIS at least the first 6 months. Like, it'd been so great for me already. I'd gone from being just a New South Wales player to a under-19 Australian World Cup player, being in the Boomers program and playing for the Boomers. Like, so much had happened. And so off the back of that year, I go back to the AIS. In the first few months, it became pretty evident I was going to go to the NBL. I wasn't going to college. And so now I'm starting to deal with contract talks. Do I go back to Sydney where I'm from? The Kings had just rejoined the league. Something in me told me that wasn't where I wanted to be, which was weird because I'm from Sydney. Although I guess I did grow up hating the Kings as a youngster, but
that could be it.
Well, because my dad was a Razorbacks, obviously. So, but I didn't want to be in Sydney for some reason. It was like that wasn't. It wasn't even that. I felt I wasn't ready to go home almost. And so then I had a couple others, but Gold Coast and Adelaide were the other ones that were really right there at the time. And Gold Coast, I knew no one. I didn't know Joey Wright from a bar of soap. I only knew that they had like guys like James Harvey, who played for the Razorbacks when I was a kid. Stephen Hoare, who was the same thing. Adam Gibson, who I knew a little bit about. Gibbo was obviously in the Australian thing, so I was away with him at that. So they had a bunch of guys like that, and then Adelaide Marty was leaving the AS to go coach Adelaide.
That would have been a lot of pull.
So I think that was, like, I was closer to joining Adelaide than I was Sydney because of Marty. And so that was around April. This all happened around April because I went to the Nike Hoop Summit as well that year. So I went to the Nike World Hoop Summit, and then college.
What's that like? Nike Hoop Summit.
Incredible. Like, every training we have, there's like NBA teams, scouts everywhere. Everywhere you go, like, there's just, it's all happening. You play in a game
Is it
against.
invite only?
Yeah. So they invite the 10, 11, maybe 12 even. 12 kids from around the world, which you want to label the best kids around the world, I don't know, but they leave 12 players from around the world, which a lot of them.
So not 12 from each country, but 12 from around the world.
Select players from around the world, mixed with the best 12 high school American basketball players. And so, I mean, I don't know if I was one of the best players in the world for my age at that stage, but if I look at the kids that were there and where they've all gone in different aspects and play, like, almost every single person has played either in the NBA or in Europe or around the world as a professional athlete.
It's a good indicator.
Well, like, yeah, the US team had Kyrie Irving, Harrison Barnes, Brandon Knight, Jared Sullinger, Tobias Harris, Kendall Marshall. Like,
I always forget Kyrie's Australian as well.
Yeah, he actually came up to me at that. So we played that game, and so after the game, he comes up to me. There was like this little food thing after the game, and Kyrie walks up to me, and I remember him saying, "I'm from Melbourne." I was like, "No, you're not." I remember saying, like, "No, you're not." And like back then, once again, Kyrie Irving isn't Kyrie Irving.
Of course,
he was just Kyrie Irving that played in this team against me as an 18-year-old kid. And I was like, "No, you're not." He goes, "I am. I was born in Melbourne." I was like, "Why are you wearing that singlet then?" And I remember that was the only discussion I had with him. But I remember that conversation. It's always stuck with me. And now you look at who I played against at that thing, and even with like Tristan Thompson, Corey Joseph, Nikola Mirotic, who was an elite player. Ines Kanter actually dominated that game. I think he set a record. He beat Dirk Nowitzki's record for that game for points. He had like 36 or something. But so some of the guys I even played with, and it's funny you don't talk at all. Maybe now and then something pops up, but you just look at where they've all gone on their path. And I was only with them for like 9 days. But in that 9 days, you're just hanging out all together. You train. There's people everywhere watching, cameras everywhere, all this stuff going on. You play a game in front of 11,000 people, 12,000 people, one game, and then everyone flies back to their own country.
Is that weird? The cameras, is it having, because you've done a few tours before, I guess, but having that much
it wasn't on
focused
that level.
attention?
It wasn't like people were at our hotel with like player cards made up of
sports
like
cards.
Yeah, and none of us were professional athletes. We only played in certain environments, but like people had made them up, and at the time, like I was signing stuff. I'm a kid from Australia, but I was like, what? Like, why are these people doing it? And now looking back, like someone's got Kyrie Irving's signature on a card from him. You know what I mean?
Now, yes.
So like at the time though, I didn't think anything, and then like years later, like even not long ago, I thought about like that whole experience, just talking about it on one of these, and I was like, I know what those people are doing now, because those same people have got a signature of Kyrie Irving playing at the Nike Hoop Summit. He's only played one game. They've got a signed card of
that
him. That is
worth so much money.
Like, it's probably worth money. And so think about even the people that got like Cadee played at that, like the names that have played at that, like they've got a card of that person signed from now 12 years ago.
Do you know how much those sports cards are worth?
No, but I've seen Pokemon cards were going for a monster.
Are you Pokemon?
I was. So here's a funny story about Pokemon. So the Razorbacks, Dad, CEO, NBL team, before games, like I'd get picked up from school at 3 and I'd be at the stadium at 3:30. My dad and mum would be doing whatever game day stuff. I'd be running around like a lunatic. The game would start at 7:30. So I'm there from 3 till midnight, basically, till we'd leave. That was my Friday, Saturday, whatever day the game was. And so for like at least one season, I want to say, they used to like the people, the cheerleaders that were run by a production company, they would always have different promo things and whatever. And I remember they'd hand out Pokemon cards at the games. So because I was with Dad, I had that many Pokemon cards. I couldn't even tell you. Like, I didn't even pay for them, given to me.
Wow.
And so I had set them all up in this folder.
Oh, no.
I mean, this folder was like the classic like sleeve. And that wasn't even anything for me other than like, I never played them. Or like, I never even did that. I played the games, but I never, you know how people could play
the trading cards.
Yeah, I never did that. I just
collected.
had all the cards because they were given to me.
So they're mint condition.
So they wouldn't have left that slip. Oh. So anyway, when all this starts going off, I ring Mum and Dad, and I knew this was going to happen. They'd done a clean out like the year before. And so that 100% got chucked. And I was like, can you check? Because I was like, I could only imagine, this is when Pokemon first started coming out too. That's why they were handing them all out, because it just became a thing. So like, I was getting, like, I don't know that they were the original, but I'm going to say they were definitely like close to being the original cards when Pokemon cards first started becoming a thing.
Wow.
And I remember ringing my mum and dad and being like, surely these are still there. Like, come on. And because I remember going back one year when they were doing it, they're in the middle of cleaning stuff out. And some of the things I found were like journals when I was in year 2 and 3. But somewhere in amongst that, those cards have been thrown out. And it's devastating. Absolutely devastating.
I got big into the sports cards probably at the start of COVID, and then sort of as the Pokemon train kicked off, a couple of mates from work.
Yeah.
And my bosses are also my mates, so I just say mates.
Yeah.
But they got big into it. Big into Pokemon. And their mum, a base set pack. So it's a booster pack, it's called, which is just a pack of 6 cards. Worth around, I think, $3,000 to $4,000 at the moment. Their mum threw it out.
No.
They did. That's exactly what happened. They've ordered a bunch of them, and one of them just got thrown out.
Nah, it's devastating. Yeah. It's crazy how it did that.
Out.
Like, they just became big out of nowhere.
Yeah.
COVID.
I think it was just everyone was at home.
Just someone found it. Yeah. I was so filthy. Because I wasn't even filthy because I thought money-wise. I was almost filthy because I just wanted to know what ones I had. Like, I just wanted to know if I had something. And I honestly, I don't know enough about them. Someone would have had to actually be like, yo, you need to get this thing checked. Or like, but like, I definitely had like Charizard cards and like the original like Pikachu, like all crap like that. Like, I had, because I remember like I used to have them in order, especially like, because I'm not as much with Pokemon. The new ones I don't really care for. I love the original ones, like your Pikachus.
Well, that's the ones that go for a lot of money.
Your Charizards, like that original, like those original ones, like they were for me, that was what I remember. And I have this vision of like opening up and the first page genuinely being like Charizard right there underneath, like all of them, you know what I mean? Like, because I had them in all. I have this vision of that's what I had there. Somebody has gone to a tip and found this thing for sure, and just like, if you have and you ever see these, I don't care. I just want to know what I had in there. Fuck. But yeah, funny that. Devastating.
That's so rough. But no, like these basketball cards. I mean, the ones that I had. So I had a 1984 Michael Jordan sticker, which was. Actually, I think it was an 86, but his rookie year was 84. But this was perceived as his rookie card, rookie sticker, a cheaper version of his card. Yeah. So it's actually not a card. It's a sticker. Okay. So if you put it on your fridge or your laptop or whatever, they wouldn't have done it in the 80s, but it's just nothing.
Nah, it's wild.
But this one was a PSA 8, so it's not a 10 out of 10 condition, not a 9 out of 10 and 8. I got it for $2,000. I sold it for $6,000. Because at that point, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, like that's good money.
About 2 weeks later, it was selling for $12,000 because Meek Mill was posting the same PSA 8, which is the grading company, 8 on his story. And I'm like, holy shit.
I've always been one with those things. You always think, like, what if? But at the end of the day, like, you made $4,000 off.
I cannot complain.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's annoying because you have that bit of annoying, but I've always tried to do that to myself and being like, you know what? If something like that happens, like, Yeah, you could have made that, but you actually did make money, and that's pretty cool
Yeah.
for stuff like that.
Well, I can't remember whose name, but there's a billionaire that says, I made a billions or millions off selling too early. And that's what it is. It's just,
Yeah.
it's too early, but you're making your money.
Well, I think I remember hearing someone say, "I've never lost money by selling early."
Yeah,
Like-
it could be something like that.
Well, something like that. Like I've never, yeah, something
Just
like along those
taking
lines.
taking your wins, taking your dubs.
But yeah. So like that whole stage, like anyway, like going back to the hoop summit, like it just was a crazy experience because you had so much going on and so much. Like there was a lot of things like you just like all the scouts and all that stuff, but then off the back of that, the college thing really kicked back up, and so it became like, oh, hang on a second,
Well, offers probably amp up as well.
just
at that
like
point.
next level because they were like, you can sign as like it was like a late signing thing, and that was like, I feel like this was happening like my birthday's the 15th of April. It was like right before my birthday. And then so it hit basically the end of that. The NBL season had just finished. Like it all ramped into craziness. And then basically like I want to say like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I announced I signed with the Gold Coast. I left the AIS because we weren't playing that many games. Dad was coaching the ABA back in Sydney at Bankstown. Went home to do that. And then, yeah, a couple of months later, I was just getting ready to probably leave to go up to the Gold Coast, not far off. And on the freeway, driving along, got pushed off the road, tried to come back on, spun out. It was like basically between like freeway going this way, 2 lanes each way, and the middle was just gravel, grass, things like that. Remember there was like a bridge coming up, tried to get back on the road, spun out, ended up kind of butt to the inside lane facing across the lanes, and then looked to my right, and here just comes a semi-trailer. It just completely pummeled me.
Fuck.
And then stuck in the car for 90 minutes. Stuck between the middle console and the door. So like I was genuinely like I was trying to push my way out, everything, couldn't move. A lady, when I'd gone into shock and passed out when I'd seen the truck, which they think saved my life because I just went limp. The lady was in the car, there was people all around the car, and then that whole thing was like, I remember it pretty well, but it was all a blur.
Yeah, for sure.
Next minute in hospital, and yeah, I think I got out of hospital pretty quick because I hated it. But I think the accident happened on Monday. I had surgery on the Friday. Found out like I had a broken pelvis, and they did all the repair work inside because there was a chance I was going to woke up with like something around me, which would have been scary.
Yeah.
I want to say I left on like the Monday or Tuesday, so I was only in for like a week. But I left way too early.
Did you check yourself out?
Pretty much. They said I had to like pass all these things to be able to leave because I was like, I was going home to my family, so it wasn't like I was living by myself.
Yeah.
But like I had to be able to move because normally on crutches you swing. If you're ever been on crutches, you swing. But on crutches with a broken pelvis, I had to take like a light step every time.
Like 2 inches
So I was moving at like snail's pace. And it killed because if I moved, it was like my pelvis was moving. And so I remember acting, and they had to make me go up these little stairs and stuff. And it was the worst pain ever because trying to lift my right leg or move it forward too far was brutal. And I remember just like, yeah, it's all good. Doesn't hurt at all. That lady left. I sat down on the chair, which was already uncomfortable sitting down. I remember just sitting there, like, broke out in a sweat and was just like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, I left after like 7-8 days. But then when I got home, I was a mess just from all the stuff I'd been on. And anyway, I was very lucky. Mum and dad and a bunch of mates come around. And
awesome.
Yeah, just like a scary time. But probably lucky I dealt with it when I was 18 years old and didn't know any better and just treated it probably like I'd rolled my ankle.
Yeah.
When it was probably like I should have 100%, like I should have died. I got hit by a semi-trailer going 100 k's of freeway on my driver's side and left with a broken pelvis. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't want to use the word good, but it's a bad situation.
It's just crazy. Like, It is crazy. And that's what like a bunch of people, mates are like, this is like stuff you see on movies, like not someone that close to you happens.
It's like when the guy you assume's dead and then he shows up at the end.
Well, funny that. So one of my mates, well, not funny, but one of my mates' dads is a truck driver. And that day they got a call like over the thing saying, avoid the M7, there's been a fatality, blah, blah, blah. Later that day, word spreads quick, basketball circles and so on, that Jason Cadee's been in a car accident on the M7.
Oh.
So quickly, he
He's
pieces
connecting
that
dots.
together. Someone else, they start asking, saying, Jace, that was Jace. He's dead. So funny this messages you get. I remember getting my phone like the next day because it was in the car, whatever. I couldn't get it. So many messages. Like, so many messages. And some people were like, actually messaging me, like friends, like, are you dead? Like,
What?
and it's funny you say that because we were just talking about it the other day amongst my teammates because of the Shane Warne thing. And like people were commenting, like, of people saying, like, commenting on his thing still. Like people, how they comment on their profile after they're gone, which is kind of weird. But it's like people, it's like almost how people process. Like people were actually messaging me to check if I had died, which is crazy. But I mean, like, as you said, disbelief, shock.
Yeah.
Like people just
Can it be?
like, and I think people do it hoping they get a response. That's the other part.
Yeah.
Like maybe he'll reply and it's all good. It's like, and so just we were talking about that just the other day, and it was like wild
Wow.
how quick word spread.
How are you? Obviously, physically, you're not good. How are you mentally? Are you thinking about basketball coming back sort of after you check yourself out? Is that
I
on
was
your
thinking
mind?
about it when I was in the car. Like I remember, once again, young, naive probably, but I remember saying to the lady who jumped in the car, I was like, I need to play basketball. Like I wasn't even saying I need to walk. I was like, I need to play basketball. Like this can't be bad. I need to play basketball. Like blatantly, like remember that whole part of saying that in the car.
Wow.
When all that stuff was going on, it was like, I need to play basketball. And it had kind of been all I knew and all it had been my life. And so, but funny, I skipped straight from like, oh yeah, I just want to be able to walk again to like, no, I need to play basketball. And so that was like always, I think I asked the doctor when they were doing the surgery, like, will this mean I can still play basketball? Like, and they were like, you'll make a full recovery.
Wow.
You might have some issues, but you'll be able to play basketball again. Like that was like genuinely the questions being asked at the hospital.
I guess that sort of could help that you've got such a high expectation that walking wasn't a part of the question.
No.
Running wasn't. You had to be. So those
Also,
things were always going to be.
probably just a bit of stupidity too, and just being young and invincible in a way. But like, if it happened now, touch wood. But like, if that same incident happened later in life, you'd probably look at it a completely different way to what I looked at it then. Like back then, I was just like, just get me out of hospital, just get me here, just get me there. Like everything was quick, and so I'm probably the fact I had to go through that. I'm probably actually grateful I went through it then, because it'd be much harder to deal with at a later age.
Absolutely. So then that, on a lighter note, delayed your debut.
So I'd signed with the Gold Coast, as I said. That all happened. I was supposed to go into a Boomers camp. So I ended up missing the Boomers camp, which would have, I think it was for like, maybe the qualifiers for the World Cup or something. But anyway, it delayed all that. I ended up, they told me I was going to be out for like 8 to 12 months. I played after 5.5 months, my first NBL game.
Wow.
I couldn't walk after the game. I got carried to the car.
Shit.
But I came back extra quick. It was probably too quick in hindsight, but I made it back. And then since that game, I think I've only missed one NBL game. One NBL game since then. And that was like a few years later with Adelaide. I broke my finger on my right hand, and I just missed one game.
Was it the second last game of the season? You hit
Nah,
your finger?
nah,
Who's played?
it was like in the middle of the season. It was like in the middle of the season. I broke it, and for that one game, I mean I was supposed to miss weeks, but after 1 week, I was like, oh no, I could just tape it up. Taped it up and played, and I'm pretty sure since I made my debut after 5.5 months after the pelvis, I'm pretty sure I've just missed one game.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
That's a fantastic sort of just testament to, I'm guessing you've got a great recovery or strength and conditioning.
I think it's what I said to you about the AIS. Like, not everyone can do it. I mean, I've seen a bunch of people not play on things, and you never want to say, oh, if that was me, I'd play or whatever. But I just think I've found ways to, like, play through shit, really. Like, if something hurts, if something's sore. Like, I've had a lot of injuries, but I just think I've been one of those people that can find a way to just, like, I'll push through it and figure it out on days I don't have a game.
Yeah. What was your most gnarly sort of, I don't know if I can play today?
I've had one recently. I about 3 weeks ago, I got hit on a screen, like a hip straight to my AC joint in my shoulder, and I've never had a shoulder issue. And it was happening in the second quarter. And I remember thinking, like, that's not a stinger. Like, that's actually, like, really sore. And then we had half time. And after half time, I was like, I can't lift this thing. Finish out the game. And then, like, after the game, excruciating pain. Wake up the next day, can't lift my arm. Like, I could lift it this far in front of me. And I was, like, screaming almost. We played the following day. And so I flew home, couldn't lift it the whole day. Got physio, they did a bunch of stuff around it. Was taking Panadol, everything you could think of that I could take. And then somehow the next day we played Tassie and somehow played. And I've played the game since. Some days I can't even put my seatbelt on. I mean, most days I can't put my seatbelt on without it hurting.
Right now still?
Yeah,
Wow.
like can barely, like we trained today and I can barely lift it after. Above my head. So this has been one of the most interesting ones. Like I've played through like rolled ankles and like even really bad corks. Like copped some really bad corks where genuinely
from a screen?
Yeah, like can't bend my leg. And then just like basically feels like you got a dead leg, but once you get going it kind of goes away. I've found like ankle stuff and things like that, like especially when I've really badly rolled my ankle, like sometimes when you get going it can just
Keep moving.
like maybe you can't run or jump properly, but like you can move at a good enough pace. Like I've always kind of been like, if I feel like I can influence a ball game, I think the one thing I always have given myself credit for basketball wise is I feel like I make other people better. I enjoy like getting people shots or like just playing the part of being a really good teammate. I feel like I've always made other people better on a basketball court. And so I think through the injury stuff, I always feel like, well, if I can play, I can still help because I can help others be better.
If I can raise other people.
And so I might finish and people are like, he sucked, he didn't make a shot, and people don't know what I was playing through, but I knew that I made a difference and helped the outcome of possibly winning. And so I think that's one thing I've always been good at with injuries, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I guess, is that what put you as captain?
Maybe. I think so. Like, I just think, like, it's funny how you talk about things as you get a bit older, and as I said, I've always, like, if someone's ever said, oh, you must be pretty good at basketball, like, yeah, I'm all right. I feel like I'm okay. I'm good at, like, I have some good games, I have some bad games, whatever. But the one thing, like, I don't feel like I've had any teammates that would have left. Maybe one or two here or there, but very few have left and said, I didn't love playing with Jason, or he wasn't a great teammate. And so that's one thing I think I've always prided myself on. And it's not forced. It's a natural thing for me. I naturally enjoy being in the change room, being around younger guys, older guys. Like when I was 18, like as I said, Peach was on our team. He had just torn his Achilles like a few games into my first year when I was out. And from that moment on, not because he tore his Achilles, I would go to his house and hang out with him and his family. At that time, he had two girls. They were 4 and 2. Peach is, what is he? He's 8 years older than me. So I was 18 hanging out with a 26-year-old and so on. So I was hanging out with all older guys. He became my best mate, and he still is. He's now got 4 kids. I'm the godfather of his youngest, Will, who's 5. Like, so Jessie's 17. She was 4 when I met them. Like, you know what I mean? So I was around older people and around that environment. I've always loved, like, older guys, younger guys. It's even the classic, like, when you're younger and you want to, like, if you're drinking with the boys, you want to go out. The older guys, they just want to drink and talk and hang out. And so there was some nights when I was younger, I was like, I just want to go out and meet girls or be with the boys, whatever it was. Yeah. But the older guys, they just want to sit in the team room and drink or whatever it was. And so some nights I'd be like, no, I'm just going to stay here with this. And it was those kind of moments I really enjoyed. And so I think going back on what you said about the captain thing, I just think it's always been natural to me to, like, I might not be the best defender or the best shooter or the best passer, whatever it is, but I always speak in team settings from a point of complete unselfishness. Like, whatever I'm saying to the group, if it's about defense, offense, whatever it is purely off what I think is what's best for the team, not what's best for me.
That's important.
And so I think there's an element of respect, and people, you can see through people, right? Like, you know what their nature is and what they do, and I'm a selfish person. You have to be selfish in some regards to be a professional athlete, but I can put my ego aside or separate myself. Like, I could sit there and blatantly say, leave him on, don't put me on, because he's killing it. and not be upset about it. Not many could do that. They could tell you they could do it, but you can tell.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's one aspect I've always been really good at, and it's what's made me a good teammate and a good person to be around as a basketball player and a teammate. And I think that's led to things like being announced the captain. Not that I really care about it. I think you can do stuff a captain does even if you don't have that label.
Yeah. Do you think do you feel as a captain to have a certain responsibility in the culture of the team that you're creating?
I think the title makes people look at you more. Like, for example, like Andre Lamanis, who I played for years, he never had captains. Just everyone had a role. And that, I think that's evident, as I said, regardless of the captaincy title. It's a title. It doesn't really, like, you can have the title and it mean nothing. Like, it depends how you want to do it. And so I don't, like, I'm the captain, what I say goes, or I'm the captain this. Like, I don't see it as that regard, but I just see it as, like, I think people, when they hear that, especially some younger guys, they might actually look to you in that role. But as I said, I think I've put myself in a position team-wise where before I had the title of captain, I think people came to me and asked questions anyway because they knew I'd give them an honest answer, or I'd give them the answer they needed, or I'd lead them in the right direction. And so I'd say everything I've done in the past has just led to now it has a title.
Okay, yeah. And then so after the games, is there a celebration culture? We've been through this. Is it the drink in the locker? Is it the...
There's elements of it. It changes because, to be honest, too, it's like a lot of what the coach wants as well with that stuff. Like, you can lead and drive things, but if the coach somewhat... So, for example, like Dre brought in a thing, must have been my second year in Brisbane, where just after the game, win or loss, doesn't care. They're going to get 2 cases of beer and cider or whatever it is, and everyone's going to get back to the hotel. If you got family, bring your family, but everyone's going to sit around and have 1 drink, and then if you're going out, go out. If you're going to dinner, if you want to sit there and drink all night, if you want to have 3, if you just want to hang out, whatever it is, just come have 1 drink. Even if you don't drink, just have a water and sit around. And so I actually found it helped. It helped kind of take the pressure off losses almost, because people would sit and unwind and maybe talk about the game or talk about whatever. So it would take away that frustration that can kick in. And when wins, it would also bring just that happy environment, enjoyable environment. So there's not as much, and our schedule kind of dictates as well because we're playing so many back-to-back games. But that was one thing I enjoyed that I think I'd like to be involved, because it just brings everyone together for only 15 minutes. But it's just the setting where instead of everyone going to your own room, no matter how bad you played or how shitty the refs were or whatever happened, you go there, you have a drink. Normally it was after a team dinner or if you're going out, and then go about your business. And it just would lighten the mood sometimes if it was in a loss situation. And sometimes it would just bring a happy mood into an environment that you wanted to be a part of anyway.
No, that seems so important. Just from the sport that I've played, it was cricket. Just chilling in the locker room afterwards. Sometimes we'd have drinks, sometimes we wouldn't, but we'd just chat.
It's appreciated more as you get older. I think when you're younger, there's an element of like phones and wanting to get places and do stuff and whatever they want to. They probably don't even do anything, some of the younger guys, but there's an element of like, especially this day and age, just wanting to get in and get out. Where like a teammate I always laughed at, Brad Newley, who's multiple Olympian and so on. He was, when I went to Greece, so I was an hour from Newell's. Newell's was in Athens. I was an hour out of Athens. We play on the same schedule. So if I was home at 5 o'clock, he was home at 5 o'clock. If I was away the week after, we were on the same rotation. I would finish my game an hour away and get to his house. So I would finish a game, have the car ready, drive straight to Athens after games because we normally had the day off and then train the following evening. So I'd get a solid day and a half there. Drive straight to his place. His old man was in town at the time too, so he'd let me in. Where's Newell's? Not home. He'd still be in the change room. He was the classic locker room guy. If there's ever a guy left in the room, it was Newell's. And it was because he loved those environments. And so I think it's more of as you get older, you start to see the older guys are happy to sit around. We're not, yes, we want to get home and do things, but we're not rushing to get out of there. We like sitting around talking, and if someone's having a beer or whatever it is. And so I think those are the moments you remember from sport.
So true. And for me, I remember some really bad days. Like, really vividly, it's like, shit, like, we went through a really bad day in the field. Like that's like some of the things that I remember.
Well, I think too, there's part of that when you're sitting there and you're thinking about the game and how bad it was and how shit I played and bloody hell,
And
I
it's
can't
almost
believe this
funny.
happened. But you sit there and then I think you come to a moment of like, people are there, but you have a moment of you look up and you're like, oh, he's still here, he's still here. Like, oh, these people are still thinking the same thing. And then you start to say like, bro, what the hell was that? Or what? And like you start to unpack some things that are going on and you realize who's still here and thinking the same thing. And so I feel like a lot of people have said to me, people that are retired, they don't miss the games or the playing. They miss the trainings and the like change room and being around each other and just like hanging out and that whole part. That's what a lot of people miss.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense because there's a lot of. I guess it's the build up.
Well, similar-minded people,
Yeah.
similar setting, going through similar things. Like, not everyone's the same, but you're doing similar things. You're trying to go through seasons together, and you're now just sitting in a locker room, just talking shit and like whatever it is. And so those kind of settings are the ones where you just sit there and you're just like
the people you've been through it with.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. Like everyone's going through their own path and doing their own thing, but you're a professional athlete and you get to sit back in a change room where all your sweaty crap is or whatever it is, and you just get to sit and talk to people who become your mates.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it like playing in the Com Games 2018?
Really cool. So I made the decision to play at the Com Games instead of go to Europe and earn money. So that kind of says how big of a decision it was.
So that was just before you signed to the Bullets?
Yeah, just before I signed to the Bullets. So our season finished. And I could have gone overseas. I think it was to Slovenia and played for like the final 2.5 months. And then I had to make a decision. If I did that, I couldn't go to the Com Games. So I remember like, what do I want to do? Do I turn down money? It's pretty good money. Where would I be most like? What would I be most angry about? I think I decided. Would I be more jealous of sitting at the Com Games and seeing someone I knew over there playing maybe, which ended up happening, earning money? Or would I be sitting in Slovenia thinking like, I can't believe I missed that. I can't believe I missed it. And so in the end, I just decided like, you know what? I would hate to, like, it was at home on the Gold Coast. Like, I would hate to not be part of that. And decided to do the Com Games. And then it all worked out. We won a gold medal.
A better result.
Yeah, we won a gold medal. So it was like, it was just something I wanted to be a part of on home soil. Chance to win a gold medal on home soil. Com Games. Basketball's not always a part of Com Games.
What's the village experience like?
See, we kind of got jiffed on it because we were in Cairns for the start of it. So we missed it. We only got we came down for the finals. So we got like the last 5 days, 6 days of living in the village. But I'd had a village experience before for the World Junior Games. World Junior Games is more of a village. That's like a mini Olympics. Like that's countries from all around the world. And the village isn't as cool as what people make it. Like the beds suck. Like they're little beds. Like they're tiny rooms normally. You have to walk. Like the dining area is legit, but you got to walk all the way to the dining area. It's like a big football field almost of like all different restaurants around it and so on. Almost like just a massive buffet of different styles of food. And so like from the point of view of like if you're thinking it's going and it's like this really nice rooms with comfy beds and like the World Junior Games one had 4 single little beds in a room.
Okay.
The sun comes up in Russia at 3 a.m. or something, 3:30. It had no blinds. So we were getting like cardboard and sticky taping it because the first night they were like, what is going on? So like it's not all like this amazing thing.
It's not
like
a Sheraton resort.
even like people that went to the Olympics and so on would tell. Like Dre said, the World Junior Games village I just talked about was better than the London Olympics village.
Wow.
So that's saying something, right? But it's the experience of like, you're in a shitty room, but you don't care because you're around people and you're enjoying this experience. And so like the village experience, even at Com Games, was a bit nicer because it was in Australia and you knew everyone and people spoke English and all that. But you sit around and you end up just playing cards, talking crap about whatever. Like you end up just doing all things together as a group. And so it's more about the people you're there with. If you were away with a shitty team that you didn't like, or it was just a bunch of people that weren't about each other, it'd be horrible.
Really? Yeah.
Because shitty bed, away from home,
Yeah.
doing all that stuff, and then dealing with
people that aren't.
people that don't want to be there. But fortunately enough, I'm Australian, and all those teams I've been on is the best environment you'll ever be a part of.
Yeah. That's
So it makes it awesome.
That's phenomenal. I mean, the Tokyo Olympics, apparently that was just a whole nother level of shitty accommodation.
Well, cardboard beds, and you got to think for those guys, obviously Sobes, who I'm close with, they had a lead up to it in Vegas and LA with camps and stuff, and it was all around the COVID stuff. So if you got COVID, it put the whole thing at everyone has to maybe isolate, it all becomes a mess. So they weren't allowed to do shit for 2 months. So that whole experience, if your teammates aren't cool and you don't all get along, that would be hell. You can't go out. There's no family on the road. At least when the Com Games, for example, a lot of us had family in town. So we had a solid 3 weeks or whatever it was of doing stuff. But we'd could go and get away and see our families or so on, especially once we got to the Gold Coast, where for that experience of Tokyo, they were just the group, and that was it. Other people at the village if you wanted to go speak to them.
Wow. And what would be your favourite experience playing basketball? Whether it's playing basketball associated because of basketball.
A couple. One of my favourite ones from a purely just, I guess, my whole life was I played a full season of ABA with Bankstown. Must have been 5 years ago now. And the year before I was back in Sydney, I was playing for the Kings. And I watched the finals, and I was there with a guy named Stevie Markovic, who used to play in the NBL, and another guy, Clint Reed, who played in the NBL years ago. And we were all sitting there, and we actually all went out, I think. And blah, 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 whoever won it. And I said, we should all do that, because we were all local Bankstown juniors. We've never all done. We should do it. Bankstown hasn't won for 20 years. We should play together next year, and we'll win it next year. We're all sitting at an RSL or a surf club at Cronulla or something. And we're that'd be pretty cool. And we ended up doing it. Wow. So the next year we actually did it. And it wasn't without its problems, believe me. We barely got there. But we made the finals. We ended up winning it all.
Wow.
And so and the person who coached was a guy I spoke about before whose dad with the truck. So Buster was a bit older than me, kind of like I spoke about Peach. Buster coached me. He was assistant coach of me when I was in under 12s. Ended up playing senior basketball with him, becoming friends with him. And so Buster was the coach. He'd never won. He'd been around that program the whole time, never won. And so it was more for me, I was so happy to see people in the club that I grew up in, from staff to coaches to all these people, just so relieved and happy they got to win. So that was one experience that was always stuck with me. And then the Com Games and the FIBA Asia Cup, when we went to Lebanon and we won that, they're two experiences with the Australian team that I'll never forget, in terms of the enjoyment of the group, the amount of fun we had, how well we played basketball-wise. Some of those trips, as I said, people think they're this great trip, but they become old pretty quick. Being on the road for 3.5, 4 weeks, same food, same hotel, stuff like that. It can get old, but the people is what makes it not get old. And we just had so much fun and played such great basketball, and it was just it was awesome.
Will you be putting yourself in the mix for, is it Glasgow in middle of this year?
Not sure. It depends if I don't know if basketball's at it. See, a lot of countries, they get to choose the sports.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of countries don't choose basketball because...
I guess Scotland probably wouldn't then.
We're probably not. So I don't know if we actually know if it's been picked.
Okay, yeah.
But apparently Melbourne's trying to get the Com Games in I want to say a few years' time. Wow. So I'd say they'd bring basketball in, because it's for Australia. It's a sport we can win gold at.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Do you have any regrets in your career or anything?
I regret getting hit by a truck. Would have been nice if I had avoided that, injury-free. No regrets. As I said, the college thing would have been interesting, but I don't regret it. It just would have been cool if you could have done double life and lived that path for a little bit and seen what it was like. But I don't regret choosing what I did. I mean, I played on the Gold Coast. That was basically my college experience anyway. But no regrets. And I think maybe one regret you could say is I wish I was a bit more selfish as a basketball player and really showed everything of me rather than I've always sacrificed if I had to and done the team thing. But once again, it's not who I am. I love that I've been myself and been a great teammate and still got hopefully a few 3, 4 years, 5 years of been doing that as well. And I think I feel like, as I said, that I could leave basketball and see a heap of ex-teammates and not one of them would not be happy to see me, which I think is pretty cool.
Amazing. That's awesome. Well done. You've had an amazing career. Socials, shout out, anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
Nah, not really. Not really. But Instagram, I'm pretty active on Instagram. I do enjoy it, even though it can be a dangerous world for younger people especially. But nah, Instagram, Twitter a little bit, but starting to do some coaching stuff, so I'll get that out there as well. But Thanks for having me. It's been good fun.
Awesome chatting to you. What's your Instagram handle? Is it at Jason?
Jason Cadee 5, and so is Twitter. Both the same.
Perfect.
Keep it simple.
Easy. Awesome.
Hopefully I don't change my playing number, then I have to change it.
True. How do you figure them out?
Well, I always loved number 5, so I've worn it everywhere I played except Adelaide. It was retired in Adelaide, so I couldn't wear it. And then now I kind of get seniority, and so I'm at the club and I have it, so I just get to keep it. But if I went somewhere else and someone else was wearing 5, I would have to hope that they didn't want
55.
it anymore, or I'd have to change the number. But I went to 4 when I went to Adelaide. My mum was 7. She's always filthy. I don't pick 7. Dad was 5. I've worn 4. I think I went to 4 because 4 was the number I normally got with the Boomers because I was just one of the smaller ones.
Nice.
But I've worn 4 and 6 for the Boomers. But yeah, 5 just feels like it's me.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
So that's where it's at.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on. It's been awesome to chat to you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.